Thank you.
Did you intend to jump?
No, I didn't, and I'm just going back to process for appointing an independent member because I completely slipped by it because I didn't have my hard copy in front of me as I cross them off as I go, and so I just skipped over it. So probably because it's only 2 pages long. So this is a process for appointing an independent member of the Finance and Performance Committee, and there's some further advice was asked for at the committee, and that's attachment C. And so I don't know, you'd like to move that? Moving, so moving 7 and 8, isn't it?
And there's a suggestion that there might be a slight wording change.
Somebody's suggesting a wording change. Ian? This is out of your report at C, Appendix C.
It's really just taking the opportunity to amend the terms of reference to provide in future for any independent member to be appointed through this appointments process, just to bring it up to date. And that's going up there as we speak, hopefully.
Oh, it says amends the membership, but you're saying amends the terms of reference?
It says amend the membership section.
Oh, the membership section of the Finance and Performance terms of reference. And you'll second that?
I've got a couple of questions. I may well be happy to second it depending where it lands. So we've got the question to answer today as to whether that independent member has voting rights or not, haven't we?
Yeah, that's the Appendix C.
Yeah, so that'll need to be resolved upon as well. So we'll need to do something with this resolution that...
No, we don't, because the resolution says they have, unless we say they haven't.
Right, yes. So there are 2 things I'd like to do then before I'd be happy to second this. The first of which would be to say that to make it explicit that they haven't got voting rights. And the second of which would be to amend the quorum of 2, either to be a quorum of 3 or to be a quorum of 2, including the chair and deputy chair. So there are 2 different issues I've raised there.
Okay, so you'd have to amend it to say with a non-voting position. So that would have to be one amendment, and the other amendment. What are you saying? That
just a quorum of 2. I think it's important that the chair and deputy chair are involved in that, or otherwise that there's a quorum of 3, just so that it's more representative.
Well. Yeah, just say a quorum of 3.
A quorum of 3 would solve it.
Unless you want to make it that it's the chair, the deputy chair, and one other.
That probably would be my preference, it's fair to say.
Is that right? Okay. But I think if that's... But I haven't got a seconder for it because at the moment you're moving an amendment to it, so you'll no, your second, you want his amendment though, the non-voting. Well, I don't. So, and the way it is at the moment is non-voting. I mean, is voting.
Yes.
So to move amendment, I'll second the motion then as it stands. But I'm happy, as I'm sure you are, Raf, to accept the second element of it about the quorum of 3, right? So now you'd like to move an amendment that says that the position is non-voting.
Yep.
And you'll second that, Pauline. Right.
Why the non-voting, first of all? If they have qualifications in respect and manner to go on it, what's the issue?
Well, I mean, that's a debatable matter. That's down to. So we might as well open it up for debate. So I'll call on Rav.
Yeah, I mean, this is something we talked about last term in terms of getting independent expertise onto various committees. We did it with the new Audit and Risk Committee, where we had an independent chair plus 2 externals, obviously with full voting rights. which has been a very successful model. It's been so successful that Auckland has borrowed it, and in fact Auckland have hired our independent chair to chair their new Audit and Risk Committee. And I think we have it with the Health and Safety Committee. So you're bringing professionals onto these committees, so to kind of, not give them voting rights is pretty silly. The whole point with the finance one is, we're managing $1 billion a year budget, and, we need as many pairs of eyes on that as we can get, and to have a little bit of expertise around the table, and it has to be the right person. And it doesn't mean that we will hire somebody, because if we don't find the right person, then it's not something that we have to have, it's something that we choose to have. And I think it will help us going forward as we continue to scrutinise the spending and financial performance of the council. So I think it's actually a very positive thing.
Dion.
Apologies for not being here before to start with, but I'll just want to echo what Raf is saying. Initially, when this came to the Finance and Performance Committee, I wasn't actually in favour of having an external member on the committee, purely because of the dilution of elected members and that whole democracy argument that you could have. But after sort of weighing up the report and actually listening to my fellow councillors, I was quite keen to sort of actually have that expertise on the council, to actually have that independent look at, especially around the finances. We have some very complicated finances coming on, sorry, I'll say it again, we have some very complicated financial matters at this council at the moment, and I'm really keen to sort of make sure that going into the future we get it right, so that we actually don't sort of burden ratepayers into the future on potential capital expenditure that we have going on now. So I'll support that we have a independent member, and I actually want to support that we actually have that member as a voting person as well, because there's no point in having somebody on the Finance and Performance Committee and going all around going through this process of having someone come on and actually not giving them the full voting rights, because it just kind of dilutes their kind of mana, as I think I heard before, and actually you might not get the right person at the table because they might not come on because they don't feel fully part of that team. So I would actually want people to think about having this person as a voting rights member, again recognising that everything that kind of happens at the Finance and Performance Committee has to come through council anyway. So that's all I'll say about that matter.
Yep. Tim, then Yanni.
Thank you. As said before by Ref, we've got independence on the audit and risk, we've got independence in health and safety, which work really well. They have full voting rights. If you're going to look at a SWOT analysis of your organisation, I would suggest that your finances would be pretty well up there too. And as Ref also said, well, it's not a have to, it's if the right person is there and they are the right person for the job, then it would make sense to have them on there and to give them full voting rights, because with voting rights comes ownership and responsibility. So if we don't have voting rights, then there's no point doing it. So I'm totally in support of this. Thank you.
Yanni, then Andrew.
I won't support someone going on here with full voting rights. I do support the amendment for the non-voting rights. And when you look at I think you need to look at what Finance and Performance Committee does, and then ask yourself, based on what happened last term, whether you'd want someone having an additional voting right on there that's not elected. Because one of the things for the Finance and Performance Committee is to look at the preparation and adoption of the draft and final annual plan and long-term plan. So I think when you look at some of the more contentious issues that we've had in the past, where we've been split maybe 8-6 or 6-8, having an additional voting person on that committee to influence that, who's not elected, doesn't have any political mandate to be around the council table, and doesn't represent a community, I think is incredibly concerning. So I think you can get the advice, and I welcome the idea that you would co-opt someone on to provide that specialist advice that you saw as important, but there's no reason that I can see why that person should be able to to vote and to take what effectively could be political positions on major issues that we have as a city. Now, who knows what those issues will be in the future. Historically, in the last term, the issue of asset sales was one such issue. It may be that the issue of the living wage becomes an issue. I don't know. But I wouldn't like to give away the right for us as elected members to our community, who are elected on a mandate and a platform back to the citizens of the city, to have non-elected people being able to vote on what I think could be potentially controversial and sensitive issues. So that's why I'm really supportive of the amendment.
Andrew, then
Point of order, I didn't want to interrupt Yanni and break his stride there, but Is Yanni talking about council?
No.
Because a committee can't
completely
decide to
off-
sell assets.
He was off topic, I know, but it doesn't matter.
Saying in that draft annual plan that we don't consider that.
I was saying
whether
that
we
the
sell-
finance committee makes a
but it can be
recommendation.
overturned by council. We're talking about a committee, we're not talking about the council.
Have you read
We
the
have
terms of
no
reference?
legal ability to put an independent person on council. The council positions are all elected positions. We are perfectly entitled to put an appointed person onto our committees. That's what we're debating, not the council decision-making. Andrew and then Mike.
I agree with the proposal to put an independent member on the Finance and Performance Committee. I believe that person, if we get the right person, if we're able to get the right person, will bring a degree of expertise and scrutiny which will be useful and could well fill some gaps that we have. In terms of the issue of whether that person should be a voting member or not, the Finance and Performance Committee, like the Audit and Risk Committee and the Health and Safety Committee, does deal with a number of compliance issues, the technical aspects of our finances. I guess there's an advisory nature in some of the work that it does as well, where things are debated in depth and considered in depth at that committee, as they are at Audit and Risk and Health and Safety, and then brought to Council with a strong recommendation. And the Council needs to have confidence that the work that's been done that led to that recommendation is robust. And generally we do, which is great. I don't believe that having an independent member voting will add anything to the strength of that recommendation. I think the input that the independent member will have to the committee arriving at that recommendation is key. But the other thing that the Finance and Performance Committee does is deal with some substantive and sometimes, as Yanni has pointed out, politically charged issues around finances. And I wouldn't want to get to a situation where there was any member of council that had any reason to question a recommendation of the Finance Committee and who voted for what, whether it was an elected member or an independent member, particularly in those close votes like the 6/8 and so on that Yanni talked about, albeit at council rather than the committee. I believe that in situations of these major financial decisions, council needs to have confidence in the recommendations of its finance committee, and it's the elected members that should be voting for those recommendations, particularly on those big substantive financial issues, which obviously have an element of politics built into them from time to time.
Mike.
Thank you. And I think Jamie said pretty much what I was going to say when he did a bit of a point of order after the fact. But I actually was erred on the side of a non-voting one, but really this committee actually makes recommendations to full council where we all get to vote on it. We need to get the best person on there, and perhaps by taking away that option for them to vote, we may not get that right person. It is really important that at the committee level we get the best people on there. Now obviously we're elected to be there, but if we can get a couple of additional people there, or one person that can add value, then I think we should go for it. We've got many committees that actually have external appointments on them that have voting rights. I don't know why we'd suddenly go to this committee and say no to it.
Phil, did you want to as well, Aaron?
I think how our councils spend our money and the recommendations is extremely important. And I think I would expect that people who can, and clearly I'd support this, that we have an independent people, but they not have voting rights. Clearly if people put their names forward, they'll have the interests of the city at heart, and they won't necessarily need to have a vote in terms of, in order to have some political persuasion at that committee meeting. I think this is really important for democracy. We're all elected. The financial part is a key part of what we do. And I think if we if we change the committee structure so that in fact the political part is altered, that is not really what, the committee in effect becomes unrepresentative. So I'm going to vote against having the person being a voting member.
Aaron?
I will support the person being a voting member, and I bring some experience in this. Through the DHB, all of our committees have appointed members. There's obviously government appointees to the DHB itself, but each of the independent committees, the Disability Committee, the Community and Public Health, Quality Finance, Audit and Risk Committee, we often have senior partner members from some of the best accounting firms in the city come and sit as part of those committees. And in the community and public health one, I made a recommendation, ironically following on from this morning, not then, but from when I had worked with the Prostitutes Collective, and a former staff member of theirs sits on a committee, and they bring a lot of knowledge to the various committees that they sit on, and it is very valuable at DHB level, and I would certainly not have it any other way than them voting.
Yeah, no, I don't support the amendment. The reason is that we never had this debate over audit and risk. It was just assumed that you put in people in an equal position to sit alongside in order to monitor and report on the audit function and the risks that we face. But at the end of the day, all of the recommendations from audit and risk come to this body. This is where the buck stops, and I think that it's fine that we I think it's really important actually that we don't tell people that we want a sort of a second tier. I mean, we might as well just hire an advisor, and we have advisors. It's management's function. They would be hired by management to support the committee. If we put somebody on the actual committee itself, then they become a part of the decision-making process, which is valuable. Diversity in decision-making is a no-brainer, and I'm afraid that sometimes even when we look around the table, we don't look as diverse as maybe one day our city will decide to be. Choosing it. Yeah. Anyway, and I really do think that from the health and safety point of view, you wouldn't put on non-voting members, you wouldn't have a non-voting chair of an independent audit and risk function. Finance and performance has become much more focused on finance and performance. The strategy side's been shifted out of there, and it's really focused on finance and performance. And as we've heard from the chair, we're now going to have a new reporting regime, which is going to be far less opaque and far more transparent. And I think that's a good reason to have additional support on the committee if it's decided by the committee to go down that track. So I'll put the amendment, all those in favour of the amendment. This is the amendment to make it a non-voting member. So all those in favour of the amendment say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. No. That's, I think, carried, but those in favour. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that's carried.
Well, can I have my vote against recorded, please?
What? Yeah, well, we'll just write down. Oh, that means. Can you just do a poll so that we've just got the names of who? Unless the system's working, is it?
Well, I can just do a call out here.
Yeah, do a call out.
Okay, Councillor Buck.
This is the amendment?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Councillor Livingstone.
Yes.
Councillor Clearwater.
Yes.
Councillor Johansson.
Yes.
Councillor Swiggs.
Just say no.
Councillor Templeton. Yes. Councillor Mandy.
No.
Councillor Kieran.
Oh, no way.
Councillor Galloway. Councillor Chen.
Yes.
Councillor Davidson.
No.
Councillor Cotter. Oh, yes. The Mayor.
That would be a no from me too.
Councillor Turner.
Yes.
Councillor Scandrett.
All done.
Councillor Groff.
No.
So you've got all the bits and pieces there. Yes. So that's carried. All right, I'll put the whole motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no.
No.
Oh, okay. No. Hands up those who are opposed now to the whole motion.
Well, it sort of makes it a bit irrelevant, so.
So, okay, Jamie,
Well, just employ an
Tim,
advisor.
Jamie, Tim, Aaron and Dion.
No.
They may not appoint, so that's fine. There may not be anyone who's interested now.
I'll just get someone that
So-
you really like.
Right, the next item on the agenda